of himself. And exactly a year ago today, on February 27th, 2017, Senator Marco Rubio first introduced this initiative in Congress, and he's going to be our next speaker, Senator Rubio.
I want to thank everybody for the opportunity to be here today. It's an honor to be a part of this. I'm proud to stand here on the unveiling of Boris Nemtsov Plaza with my colleagues. I want to especially thank the chairman, Bill Mendelson, council member Мэри Че, and the other members of the D.C. City Council. Thank you, Vladimir, and thank you, Zana, and all the other members of the Nemtsov family who stand here with us as well today. This street sign directly outside of the Russian embassy will serve as an enduring reminder to Vladimir Putin and to those who support him that they cannot use murder and violence and intimidation to silence the voices of freedom and dissent.
That's right.
But the voices of the defenders of liberty will live on. Boris Nemtsov dedicated his life to the vision of a free and democratic Russia. He was an outspoken critic of Vladimir Putin and of his regime's corruption, of its invasion of Ukraine, and this ultimately led him to this tragic fate that he suffered, a fate that has befallen far too many of those who dare criticize Vladimir Putin. Since his murder in 2015, Boris Nemtsov has become a symbol for so many Russians, both in Russia and abroad, for those fighting for freedom and openness and transparent government. Last February, as was just stated, on the second anniversary of his murder, we made a commitment in the United States Senate to ensure that his legacy is never forgotten. And when this bill to rename the street could not, as far too many things cannot, find a quick way forward, we worked with the City D.C. Council, and we are grateful to them for stepping forward and making this a reality. I want to thank them for their extraordinary efforts. And now, 1 year later, on the third anniversary of this murder, of this assassination, we stand here to make that sign permanent. To continue to honor Boris's legacy, we must never stop calling out Vladimir Putin's repressive policies in Russia, but also his continued aggression around the world, his support for war criminals like Assad in Syria, and we must never stop speaking out or guarding ourselves against his efforts to interfere in our democratic process here in the United States and in nations across the world. We must stand with the thousands of Russians who peacefully protest the rampant corruption and the illegitimate elections that his government holds. And it is my hope, it is our hope, that one day the Russian people will have leaders who protect the fundamental liberties and freedoms of all of their citizens, and people who will be leaders who will be very proud to have Boris Nemtsov's name outside their embassy here in Washington. And until that day comes, and I know that day will come, we will continue to stand with those in Russia fighting for a better future, the free and prosperous future that was envisioned by Boris Nemtsov. We will continue to support that cause. We are with you, and we thank you for being here today.
It's often said that the best things here in Washington are done on a bipartisan basis. So it is my pleasure to introduce our next speaker, the lead Democratic co-sponsor of this initiative in the United States Senate, the U.S. Senator for Delaware, Christopher Cruz.
Thank you, Vladimir Karamuza. Thank you for your courage. Thank you for your leadership. And thank you for your witness about what it was that Boris Nemtsov stood for. And thank you, Zana Nemtsova, and all the members of Boris Nemtsov's family for being with us today as a reminder in person of what we lost 3 years ago. It's critical that we be reminded here by this sign, by this gathering, by the witness of those who've spoken, what it was Boris Nemtsov stood for. A Russia that would be governed by a rule of law, a Russia where there would be free press and democracy, a Russia that would be an open society. And that he was here, helping open this Russian embassy, is a stark reminder of how different a path Russia has taken from that day. Why was it that Boris Nemtsov 3 years ago today was cut down in his prime? Because Russia today is led by Vladimir Putin, who suppresses dissent, who suppresses rule of law, who suppresses a free press, who interferes in elections around the world, who invades adjacent nations and interferes in countries around the world. We are here today because of an action by the D.C. City Council for which we're grateful, because of bipartisan support in the Congress, but more than anything because of the bravery of Boris Nemtsov, who chose to stand up even when threatened, because of his family that supported him even when they knew this was dangerous for him to undertake, because of his friend and colleague Vladimir, who knew the risks they were undertaking. Today we unveil a sign, and some might say, that's just a piece of metal with a name, it's just a small sign. But those who stood as the Sakharov name was unveiled outside the Soviet embassy know that a campaign over years ultimately succeeded in restoring a measure of human rights and dignity and freedom to the then Soviet Union. And so to those of us who today gather and witness to Boris Nemtsov's service and sacrifice, his vision and his hopes, know that someday, Russia will be free again. This embassy will be honored again by the name Boris Nemtsov on the street on which it sits. Let us cheer his legacy. Thank you, God bless.
So now we are going to proceed with the unveiling ceremony, and it's going to be done by Sonia Karamurza, the youngest daughter of Vladimir and Evgenia, and also Boris Nemtsov's goddaughter. We will immediately resume after the unveiling ceremony. Thank you.
Я здесь, я снимаю.
That's kind of for fun. When we say one, we can pull. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Sorry?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's the mother right here. Mom.
Жалко, что не сказали ни одного слова по-русски.
Это американская земля и американский закон.
Ну вот когда будем открывать на мосту Немцова возле Кремля, там все будет по-русски.
Но
Ни одного
все равно мы
английского слова.
заслужили чуть-чуть, кто живет здесь, услышать что-то по-русски.
Американского посла. Ну, в Москве, может быть, пригласили бы американского посла.
Сюда?
Нет, в Москве, когда открывали.
Привет. Да, где ты ездишь?
Не отправляю.
Конечно.
Давай. Привет. Я вам принес кое-что.
Как сегодня открывают, вот открыли.
Ну, открыли.
А дальше все.
Слушайте, а у вас
холодно.